All right, we are here at the famed American Top Team headquarters, Coconut Creek, Florida, and we are joined by the former UFC interim lightweight champion, future UFC Hall of Famer, Dustin the Diamond Poirier. It's good to see you, champ. How you doing?
Good, man. Good to be here. I'd rather be a different place. I've spent so much time these last 5 weeks at this gym, but it's all good.
And you're in the middle of a fast right now, as I understand it. So.
Yeah. In camp, I fast every weekend.
Right.
So.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So a lot to get into with you today. We're getting closer to this main event against Justin Gaethje. You've been essentially involved in every type of big fight possible, right? International Fight Week headliner, UFC main events several times over, interim title fight, undisputed title fight, and now a BMF title fight to headline a pay-per-view and check off another box, I guess, in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Like we were just talking before the camera started rolling. When I speak to these other fighters who are just getting to the UFC and younger guys, and we start talking back timelines and things, it's like I don't even realize some of the stuff that's happened and how long I've been doing it. But here we are, man, still cracking.
So it's rare that the UFC has a headlining fight and there isn't an undisputed championship on the line. Why is this a main event? Why is this a 5-round pay-per-view headliner and not a 3-round co-main event per se?
It's tough to say, but I think there are certain times where like the perfect storm builds and collides, and this is one of those times. You know, I don't think anybody can just step up and fight for the BMF title. It's guys who have earned their keep and guys who fans know are going to leave it all out there, and like I said, it's a perfect storm. We're going to go out there and 25 minutes we're going to bust each other up bad.
So the altitude component is something that you're going to be asked a lot about, obviously, leading up to Salt Lake City. You accepted a fight against a guy who trains at altitude, and the fight is happening at altitude. To what extent do you expect that to be a factor, and is there any way to sort of get ahead of it before you head west?
Yeah, a lot of people have been asking me about that. I've never really fought at high. I fought in Calgary. That wasn't as high as Salt Lake. You know, a bunch of times in Vegas, which is very low altitude.
Right.
But I don't know. I teamed up with Higher Peak. They sent me a altitude tent surrounding my bed. So as long as I get 8 hours in there consecutively leading up to the fight. Then I'm going to go out to Salt Lake 8 nights. I'll sleep 8 nights before the fight. So I think I'll be good. We're not fighting on Mount Everest.
Right.
It's another fight. It's 25 minutes, and I don't get tired, man.
So you have fought, especially recently, a lot of these fast chargers, these fast starters. They get off to a good start early, and you've been able to sort of stem the tide with all of these guys. Resilience, I think, is a word that comes to mind. I'm not sure if that extends to your personal life as well, but what is it about your resilience and your ability to stay focused in those potentially fight-swinging moments?
I know going in there that it's a fight and bad things are probably going to happen. You know, I'd love to go in there and clean a guy up and get out, scratch-free and meet my family after, but I expect that to happen in these fights, and I just trust myself to, I know I'm human, I can be finished by anyone, but trust myself to find a way to persevere and find an opening and just stay in there. I don't know, I just trust myself.
Yeah. Does that resilience extend to your personal life, or like do you use a handyman, or does Dustin Poirier like fix everything?
If I can, first I'm gonna try to fix it, and then I'll probably have to call somebody.
All right. So 4-0 in rematches, if my research is accurate. You got another one here against Justin Gaethje. There are a lot of narratives that came out of that first fight. It feels like a long time ago, even though you don't look like you're aging. April 2018, it goes to the main event rounds. What do you remember about that first fight with Justin?
I remember feeling like I found a good rhythm. I was making him cover high, was eating his body up. Obviously, we all know I got kicked too many times. I didn't check enough kicks, got my inside leg torn up. That kind of slowed my movement down a little bit. You know, that leg gets filled with blood. It's hard to move in and out and move laterally like you were before. But I felt good. I felt in a good rhythm. I felt like I was in charge for sure.
So in terms of the leg kicks, I guess we'll stay on that for a second. Bilal Muhammad and others, and we've talked about this privately, suggest that it's a mental toughness equation. But there is a medical thing going on when you get kicked below the knee, right? The peroneal nerve can affect things in that leg. So in terms of that particular weapon and its effectiveness, I think Justin landed 50 of them statistically in that first fight. How do you address that, either in training or mid-fight, when you feel like he's gotten you pretty good?
We've been same thing as the first fight. You know, we work in the counter, throwing my left hand when he's committing to the kick, because Justin's the kind of guy who will put himself in harm's way to land that big kick over and over again. And you need one good shot. If you're off balance, throwing everything you have into a kick and you get hit with a good clean left hand, you saw what happened in the first fight. So I think he's going to think about that a little bit, but with my coaches, we're working on checking kicks, checking inside leg kicks.
Yeah. Can you pinpoint, and I've asked you this before in fighter meetings in terms of skill development, you know, where are you now relative to 2018? I think your championship medal maybe is in a different place than it was in 2018. It seems like there's no setting in mixed martial arts that could be too big for you, but what's the difference in the Dustin Poirier that Gaethje's going to see on July 29th compared to the guy he fought 5 years ago?
Oh man, that's kind of a deep question because we're both at a different spot. We both had shots at the undisputed world title since then.
Yeah.
You know, multiple.
Yeah.
And you don't get a whole lot of those. So to be in a position to climb back up and potentially get another shot at the gold, you know, whoever falls here is going to fall hard. And whoever wins here is going to win big. And big things are going to happen after that. And I know that's on the line. So I'm just moving into it as a completely different fight. You know, leading up to this fight, I'm not going back a whole bunch and watching footage on the first fight.
Right.
This is a whole different fight. And I'm mentally just moving like that.
It is interesting when you peel back some of the numbers. You both have fought exactly 8 times since you fought each other in 2018. You both are 6-2 in that span. You mentioned some of the championship fights. Seems to be this narrative out there that Justin Gaethje 2.0 arrived a couple of fights ago and was there in the Rafael Fiziev fight. Without peeling back the curtain too much, is this an entirely different animal than you faced in 2018, or is that a little bit overblown?
It's the same animal, just doing things a little bit differently, you know. Being a little more precautious, a little bit more defensive, throwing more jabs, moving laterally a little more.
Yeah.
I'm not going to overblow like the fans and stuff are saying. It's completely different.
Right.
I go back and watch his Fiziev fight. I see a lot of the same tendencies, you know.
Right.
But I do see a lot of new wrinkles of footwork and head movement and jabs and different angles and things he's doing. Even setting up his kicks, he's stepping out and taking himself off the center line and doing small things that make a big difference at the highest level. But he's the same guy. He's going to bite down. He's going to throw hard.
And we're excited to watch it all play out, of course, in front of a pay-per-view audience. I'm going to take you back to 2021, and this was a quote that you gave us in our fighter meeting. I'm grateful for 2021, but I'm going on vacation. And this was one of the most productive yet taxing years of your career. 3 title fights, all the emotion that came with that 2-fight series against Conor McGregor, and then asking yourself to again compete in that undisputed title fight in December against Charles Oliveira. Dominic Cruz suggested for himself in 2016, 3 title fights in 1 calendar year was a little bit too much. Is it fair to question if maybe you asked a little bit too much of yourself in turning around for that 3rd title fight to close out 2021?
It's tough to say. You know, hindsight is. I try not to look back there too much, but no, I was in the moment, man. I was there. It was a lot, you know, all the media rounds, all the countdown shows and filming and just so much training. You know, I was here most of the year. I was in South Florida. I live in Louisiana. I was here most of the year preparing for fights. You know, if I'm doing 9-10 weeks at every training camp, I was here a long time. And I've been doing this a long time. So it is easy to kind of not want to walk through these doors after so many months of doing it over and over again. Even though I love what I do. You know, I come in here and I love what I do. But you can do anything too much. But that's not why I lost. Charles was better that night. I made a mistake. And
yeah. So UFC 257, January of that year, Dustin Poirier has knocked out Conor McGregor. A lot of people feel like with that knockout, you effectively changed your life forever in terms of financial freedom and other things. Perhaps you see that as your signature win, maybe the most satisfying singular night of your career. Perhaps not. But what do you feel like about that night in terms of the totality of your career?
It was just another huge achievement, another great victory. It did set me and my family up. The 3rd fight with Conor, you know, it just kept the ball rolling, and all the years bleeding and suffering and hurting for a little bit of money, you know, wasn't done in vain. It continues to pay off and continues to show the world my skill set, and I'm better than last time out. I learned from losses, and it's just part of the journey, you know. It was a great night, though. It was a great night.
And I know you're still enjoying the journey. It's amazing to think back to the Fightville documentary and just to think back to how organically your fan base has developed. You know, we can sit here and say in 2023, you don't have the undisputed lightweight title, and you know what, you're headlining a pay-per-view. You got one of the 5 biggest fan bases in the sport, and you haven't had to step outside of who Dustin Poirier is to realize that. It's pretty special.
Yeah, I'm thankful for the opportunity and the people who came in early to shoot that documentary when I was still an amateur fighter and so young, and people got to see me kind of grow into becoming a father and challenging world titles and beating top-ranked guys, and just the whole journey. You know, it's been documented from a young age, my journey. So I think that's why people who have been following me and who are following me, you know, kind of gravitate towards that because they've seen the whole journey.
Yeah. And Joe Lee, he still looks the best with a skin fade. I'm telling you, it's the best haircut on this guy, but I know everybody disagrees. They all love the lettuce. So you turned pro in 2009, and despite some surgeries and some injuries, you may not know this, right? Like, you think about all these guys taking years off here and there. You've competed at least once in every calendar year since 2009. You will be 35 years of age in January, if my research is accurate.
Since 2006, you know, I was fighting amateur back before they had the rules of amateur. You know, we were fighting professional rounds.
So a lot of these fights have been violent. Obviously, you've doled out a lot of that violence, but if you tell me you haven't thought about life after fighting, I would submit to you that you're probably lying to me. So have you guys talked about life after fighting?
Of course, I'm not an idiot. This thing's gonna stop one day. And you know, I don't want the sport to retire me. I want to walk away from the sport, you know, with my faculties and not try to squeeze one more payday or one more run at something whenever I'm not fully in it. You know, that's not why I want to honor the sport. That's not why I do this. And I'm in a different position than maybe a lot of other fighters are. I put myself in this position, making smart moves, fighting the right fights, doing things my way. But yeah, it's the sport has turned into that kind of that fashion show of who says what, who's wearing what YouTube video they put out, who's getting clicks and all that. And I wasn't doing it. I feel like that's newer age fighter stuff. I wasn't doing that back then. That's not why I ever picked up a pair of gloves.
Right.
It was to scrap. And hopefully one day feed my family doing it. And I've done that.
I would imagine, though, you still feel pretty close to your fighting prime. It stands to reason the best version we see might be at UFC 291. But are you a relatively young 34, and do you feel like even if you have to make adjustments in training for the sake of your body, that you are getting better and still close to that fighting prime?
Yeah, I still feel great. You know, my hip bumps and bruises, things like that bother me. I had the hip surgery after the Khabib fight. You know, I'm right back to where I was. I feel great. You know, for the mileage I have. I guess it's been highway mileage, you know, I feel good.
So one question I'd imagine you get sick of answering, and I can speak to this a little bit, like, what are your goals beyond beating Justin Gaethje, right? I don't need you to sit here and tell me that you would like to become the undisputed UFC lightweight champion of the world, but Louisiana, right? Most people feel like if we're going to get to New Orleans, you know, you got to be the man on the marquee. What are your thoughts on future goals in the UFC, getting back to your home state and everything else?
You know, I was lucky enough to the last time UFC came to New Orleans, came to Louisiana, I was lucky enough to fight on that card. Going back there would be huge. I would love to do that, you know, especially towards the last chapters of my career. Fighting back home would be amazing. You know, it'd be a homecoming. After all the things I've done and fights that I put on, people would be super excited. I mean, we'd sell anywhere out. We'd sell the place out in Louisiana. And just to fight on home soil would be a big thing for me.
I know Brendan Allen's pushing hard, so hopefully you guys can push them over the finish line.
Yeah, and we have Matt Schnell, a 125er from Louisiana. We've got some talent from Louisiana now, so maybe we can stack the card.
So Daniel Cormier and others have suggested they would like to see you defend this BMF belt if indeed you win it in Utah. And we understand your eyes are firmly on the prize, the undisputed UFC lightweight championship. What were your thoughts on that recent result between Beneil Dariush and Charles Oliveira, and how that result impacts the pecking order now at 55?
It's tough to say because the machine, the bosses have their own plan, you know, so I don't know what's going to happen. But if Beneil would have won that fight, he would have definitely fought Islam next, right? He's a new challenge. He's on a winning streak. He's earned it. But now Charles won. Charles recently fighting Islam. We don't know if they want to do that rematch right away. So I don't know. It's up in the air. I'm just trying to get through July 29th, and then when the smoke clears, maybe we're there again.
All right, I got some rapid fire questions with the man Dustin Poirier on the way out. If you could have a rematch with Khabib Nurmagomedov or Charles Oliveira, I don't want to know which guy you would like to have the rematch with. Is one of those fights more winnable than the other, Khabib or Charles? No comment is a fine answer.
No, of course I got to comment. I think Charles is a more winnable fight.
Hardest puncher you've ever faced?
Conor McGregor.
Your most underrated training partner is whom?
Dang. I've had so many. Each camp, it's a lot of different guys, but I can't say coach. It has to be a training partner.
Well, my next question is your most underrated coach. So you can marinate on the training partner. It is interesting to see guys like Sabah Homasi and all these bodies and guys, and I shouldn't call him a body, he's an outstanding fighter, but all these guys that have been along for all of these major moments in your career.
I don't want to like throw anybody under the bus.
Yeah.
I have so many guys. Sabah Hamasi is an incredible training partner. We've learned so much together. But even a guy like Johnny Eblin has come in at a later part of my career. Sabah's been there since the old American Top Team before we built this place. But Johnny's come in and helped me elevate my game so much and pushes me and teaches me things. And I've been doing it way longer than him, but just his mindset and his work ethic has elevated mine. So those two guys for sure.
Most underrated coach? Is there any coach that you could possibly point out? I mean, we love Brownie, but Brownie gets a lot of credit, and rightfully so.
And
I don't know how underrated he is.
He should. Brown's been there teaching me stuff when he was still fighting at the old gym.
Yeah.
You know, he's been a coach before he was official coach. But Dia Davis, my boxing coach, deserves a lot of credit as well.
Yeah.
His father ran the boxing program in American Top Team, so he was still boxing professionally at the time when he was younger, and his sport is boxing, but he kind of grew up around MMA in a weird way. So he understands mixed martial arts, and he's throwing kicks at me, and he's understanding chokes and stuff like that. So he's helped me out a lot, but just his mindset, growing up in a fighting family, his father being a professional boxer, fighting in the Olympics, and he just has a different mindset, a fight mindset, says certain things at certain times, and breaks down things a certain way that only we know.
Yeah, a lot of men and women behind the man. Favorite sports team, is it the New Orleans Saints? I remember when you were getting ready to go to Fight Island to fight Conor, you were prioritizing watching a Saints playoff game, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, we were in the hotel lobby.
That's right.
Yeah, New Orleans. Yeah, New Orleans Saints.
All right, so DraftKings Sportsbook has set the season win total over under 9.5 regular season wins for your New Orleans Saints. Slightly juiced to the under. You think they go under or over 9.5?
Wins?
Yep.
I'm going over.
All right.
I think Carr's going to be a good fit. We got a solid defense. Let's go over.
All right. To this point in Dustin Poirier's 28-fight UFC career, over under 9.5 total UFC main events. Do you know how many?
Probably under.
Over 10 main events, and that does not include UFC 291. So 10 UFC main events. Circle gets the square. All right. Your daughter, Parker, any interest in mixed martial arts, either watching or participating at this stage of her life?
She's not really big. She hasn't really gone that way. She wants to be a girly girl.
That's fine. That's
not that
good.
women can't fight, but she likes gymnastics and cheer and stuff like that. She hasn't shown any interest in fighting.
Fact or fiction? You have sold more hot sauce than you ever possibly imagined. It's like everything you touch turns to gold.
Fact.
All right, and then the Good Fight Foundation, it's incredible how much traction you guys have with this foundation, and your philanthropic initiatives have obviously been recognized by the UFC Hall of Fame and Toyo Tires. Tell us what the future holds, and if there's anything in the past, singularly, playgrounds or otherwise, that you're most proud of.
Yeah, I'm definitely really proud of the playground we built for Aaron Hill and in Lafayette, Louisiana. But there's so much things we've done and small things that don't get caught on camera or we don't really talk about a whole lot, whether it's somebody in the line picking up a backpack with their kids in the back seat and talking to me for a second. You know, so many things have touched my heart, but it's just amazing to be able to do the things that we've or reach the goals we've set. And after this fight, as soon as this fight's over, we have an annual backpack drive. So we'll be giving out, over 1,000 backpacks filled with school supplies for the year in Lafayette, Louisiana. So that's 3 or 4 days right after the fight. So if I'm busted up and you see me out there in the line handing backpacks out, you know why.
Dustin Poirier, the real article, as John Candy said in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. He's the real article. What you see is what you get. You can see him live on pay-per-view. UFC 291, Poirier versus Gaethje 2, from what we expect to be a sold-out arena in Salt Lake City, Utah. DP, appreciate the time, man. Finish strong. We'll see you live on pay-per-view.
Let's go.